Hey, this is Dave from metalepidemic.com. Thank you for checking out our YouTube video. Please feel free to hit the subscribe button below if you like this type of content, and we hope you enjoy the review. What's up guys, Dave here from Metal Epidemic, back with another album review. And for this review, Duncan Kyle and I have been checking out the new album from UK quartet boss Keloid. The band's new album, Family The Smiling Thrush, will be released on June 4th via Ripple Music.
Anyone gets thrushed, they're not smiling. Just want to put that out there. Nasty.
Oh dear. These guys have been active since about 2010, and Family The Smiling Thrush is the band's fifth full-length album, which follows up the critically acclaimed Melted on the Inch from 2018. The album was produced and mastered by Chris Fielding at the legendary Fole Studio in Wales. The band entered the studio with a focus on gaining a clearer, more open-sounding recording than ever before, putting strong emphasis in particular on the drum sound being as big and natural as they could get it. The band have described this as their most collaborative writing effort to date, and also the most involved they've ever been in the recording and mixing process. Okay, so time for a wee Davey truth bomb here. I liked Melted on the Inch. I thought it was a decent album, but I wouldn't have given it the big soapy hand job that most of the other publications were giving it. Yep. If I'm being totally honest. It got a lot of perfect or near perfect scores from various websites, magazines and stuff. But I do think, even from that album, I do think they have a unique sound. So I was quite interested to hear where they'd go with this new album. Duncan, you were aware of Boss Keloid, but had you checked out Melted on the Inch?
Yes. Now this is where we go further behind the scenes, Dave. They are represented by a friend of ours who is very passionate about music in general, and it's safe to say between the Buried and Me and Boss Keloid are maybe the two bands that I think if she could kidnap them, she would. So yeah, she was very vocal about the last album, and when Lisa gets excited about something musically, I check it out. She's usually got a really good instinct for stuff that is a kind of against the grain of what you're usually listening to if you're listening to playlists or whatnot. So I checked out then, and I am with you. I thought it had some really interesting elements. I enjoyed the eclectic nature of the songwriting, but I didn't think it all worked together in a way where at the end of it I was like, well, that's a 5-star album. It just didn't. There were elements that I thought were fucking incredible, like absolutely mind-blowing, and then other bits that I thought just didn't necessarily sit, like they were maybe trying a little bit too hard to try and fit elements that just didn't organically match in. So yeah, I'm with you on that one. I thought the previous album was a good album. I didn't think it was a great album.
Yeah. Okay. Kyle, had you heard Boss Keloid before?
Yeah, and I may be sort of on the same page, but maybe I liked him a little bit more.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Okay, so the new album. Firstly, I just want to say I am so glad that they stuck with Chris Fielding on this one.
Yeah.
In my opinion, he is one of the best producers in the UK right now. We have spoken in the past many a time about his production work with the likes of Conan, who he's a member of, Aluna, Atavist, Slomatics, like you name it. Like he's worked with a ton of bands, but he's one of these guys that always manages to give bands their own sound. Nothing he does is cookie cutter, and that was evident on Melted on the Inch. And once again with this album, he's captured this band's sound perfectly. It sounds very natural. It's not overly processed, and when they let go in those kind of bigger moments, at either end of the scale, it sounds huge. Like I mentioned the drum sound earlier, and I have to agree, it sounds awesome on this album. You'll really notice it on the album, and the tracks the kind of certain tracks that open with like a fill, like what's the one, Hats the Mandrill, or tracks where the drummer's using more fills, like on a flat controller. You can really hear that drum sound, how natural and kind of thick it sounds. Perfect. Absolutely loved the production on this album. For me, musically, this sounds like a band pushing forward and taking massive strides. It's still very much a Boss Keloid album at its core, but they've expanded their sound even more on this album. And they were always a difficult band to pigeonhole, but I think they've maybe made it even more impossible to put them in a particular box with this one. It still has like a streak of like sludge to it, but it doesn't feel like the focus of their sound at all. They're also blending in a bit of prog, there's progressive elements, there's some stoner characteristics in there as well. And again, there's plenty of melody from vocalist Alex Turst. But in general, the whole thing just feels bigger. And I think that's partly to do with the production that Chris and the band have managed to capture, but it's also down to the songwriting on this album, which I think has gotten even better since Melted on the Inch. I really just adored the attention to detail on this. The tracks are far more fine-tuned. The balance of heaviness to melody feels absolutely spot on. The melodies are so well written. Like, they could always write a good earworm, but I just felt like with Family The Smiling Thrush, there were moments on nearly every track that would get trapped in your head after only a couple of listens. And I had that occasionally on the last album, but not nearly as much as this, and not as instant as this either. Like those riffs and vocal melodies that open Smiling Thrush are just completely captivating. The other thing that I think they got right on this album is knowing when to let that experimental side of the band out and when to just kind of pull back on it a little. Sometimes it was a little too kind of wandering for me on Melted on the Inch. And they still experiment on this release, but it feels like it has a point, like that they're either leading to something or building into another section. Like if you listen to Cecil's Succulent, which it feels quite proggy and almost has a kind of like jam type quality to it, but it leads into the first verse where they keep a lot of the kind of same components from it. And I also like the fact that they don't always have the guitars constantly at 10.
Yeah.
Like, I love the fact that they play some of the main riffs completely clean. Like, because when they do make that switch into a more kind of heavier, distorted riff, it really hits you. Like, it just hits you like a ton of bricks. There's moments on, like, Smiling Thrush, Grendel, and Flat Controller where they make that shift from clean into heavy, and it just has an even bigger impact because of that change in dynamics. Flat Controller is a fantastic closing track. Has a great groove. The rhythms are really infectious, and I love that kind of fade out of acoustic guitars. I thought it was a perfect ending to the album. The last thing I want to mention is I just want to take a minute to appreciate the vocals of Alex Hurst.
So good.
What a set of pipes that guy has on him. Like, I think his tone is really captivating. It's really unique. That's just as appealing whether he's going fully clean or adding a bit more rasp to his voice in the heavier parts. But and just as importantly, the band as well, musically, are fantastic on this, and one wouldn't be the same without the other. Like, I was thinking at times this album wouldn't be nearly as good with a different vocalist, but the same could be said for the music on this. You know, Alex and the band as a kind of tight-knit unit is what makes this so good. You can tell they're so like in sync with each other, and I got that right throughout the album. I think this is a far superior album to Melted on the Inch, in my opinion anyway. I think they have elevated in every single way on this album. Thoroughly enjoyed it from start to finish. Duncan, as someone who had heard Melted on the Inch, what did you make of this new album?
Just to we're talking about soapy hand jobs, which I'll just stress out there, ladies and gents, as a public service announcement. A soapy hand job sounds good on paper, right? But if any of that soap gets in your urethra, pain is the name of the game. So
that shit stings.
Yep, play safe. So now that we've got that one, it was a public service announcement by the guys at Metal Epidemic. Disclaimer: Duncan's views may not represent the entire Metal Epidemic company. Please see your doctor if the pain persists. Yeah, the production is the first thing. It's probably worth mentioning. I'm glad that they've taken a point in the press statement of kind of making sure that you're aware that there's a lot of craft going on here. Because I think it's very easy to say, I do it all the time, production sounds really good, but when a band single it out themselves as, oh, by the way, we're really going for this on this, the drum sounds fucking great, the guitars great, everything is just so audible and nice and clean, and it's textured and it just fits like a fucking glove. Second thing, the songwriting on this one, I think, is it's almost night and day at times to what was on Melted on the Inch, where I felt like I felt it meandered at times, almost trying to find its way to link back. I actually feel like every journey where the band goes off and explores is specifically for a purpose, and I get that purpose. I maybe didn't get the purpose on the previous one. The band clearly had a purpose. It just didn't resonate through my listen. So all works here. The band are at their most playful in parts on this album, and it does my heart good to listen to. Cecil Succulent that you mentioned earlier on, you were saying it kind of had a proggy start. It's 2 steps away from being like Peter Gabriel and Salisbury Hill. It is so weirdly 80s proggy pop. And then it blindsides you with a guitar over the back of the head when your attention's been distracted. And it leads to maybe one of my favourite choruses on the entire fucking album. And they make it sound so easy. Guitar-wise, they are doing the sludgy stuff, they're doing the stonery stuff. At times, there's bits specifically in the tone and the way they're playing the guitars that remind me a lot of CKY. Like early CKY would have these monolithic sounding riffs, which were coming from an obscure fucking punk band. You'd be like, why does that sound so fucking heavy? And they're doing that sort of stuff in here. There's shades of Mastodon in here, which I fucking love. There's shades of early Baroness in here, which I fucking love. But it sounds like them. At no point am I like, well, here's the Mastodon bit, and here's the bit where they want to sound like Red Fang. It's like all of it sounds very, very, very much tailored to their specifications. And the way they structure their songs, the way they craft things, Hats the Mandrill. I mean, there's an earthy tone to this album at times. I kept thinking about and please don't take this offensively, Boss Keloid, if you're listening to this. I just imagined like a hedgehog, stuck in a hedge, but with a metal guitar, fucking playing riffs. There's I don't know what it is. There's just an earthy kind of foraging sort of. It's weird. Okay. It's weird to describe. Like, this is how my brain works. It's fucked. And then a year being locked in the house is fucked it even more, right? But there's just a kind of foraging feel. It just has this. Like, if they wanted to call themselves Hermitcore, that would work. Right, it just has that. There's a cadence and a style and a groove and a vibe and a feeling, and it is organic sounding. And to do what they do and still sound organically, like this was always how this song we hadn't written it yet, but this was how it was always going to sound. Is almost the feel I get in everything through here. Every element utilised perfectly. The vocals are insane, insane. Catchy as fuck, abrasive when it needs to be, so the melodies. I've been singing this for 3 days. I fucking love it. I think it works so well. And then the guitar work, it's catchy when it needs to be. It goes a bit exploratory in the background. The bass work is sublime. The drummer is it's just so fucking good. It's the attention to detail on this album which makes it stand out in a genre which thrives itself on kind of sounding messy. Boss Keloid have managed to capture a kind of messy sound but make it sound like machine gun precision in parts with the way it's focused on the songwriting. It is such a weird oddity of an album. Like, it's a very, very, very strange album to try and articulate why you think someone should listen to or love Boss Keloid, and it didn't gel for me on the previous album. It fucking gelled with me on this album. I love this album. I've listened to this album to death already, and yeah, this is. See, when we talk about contenders, this is a top 5 contender for me already.
Ooh.
And that's coming in with a fucking bullet. This is the tits. So I'm sorry I doubted you, Boss Keloid. But I like to think somewhere in your mind you knew that you had the doubt of Duncan McLeish, and as a result it forced you to prove me wrong. Which, ladies and gents out there listening, they have, and I will eat my humble pie. It's fucking great. It's fucking great.
Nice. Kyle, what did you make of this?
When you start your album off with a 9-minute song, it had better fucking well change my goddamn life, I'm telling you. I'm sad to say this one absolutely did, because oh my god, it did not feel like 9 minutes. I was like, no. I was like, oh, that was a quick song at the end. I was like, no, it fucking wasn't. Whoa.
He's just like, but why is my beard at my knees? I mean,
right?
How long was I?
This album is so perfect, and so the production is perfect.
Yeah.
You can't knock it. There's nothing. It's natural fucking drums. It's everything is absolutely just as it should be. And like you were saying, it's like messy, but also not messy at all. They've got the tones, they've got the bass, they've got all of the drums, and everything is perfect. The octaving on the guitars, absolutely in the clean parts, I love it. A glorious organ use. I swear I heard it. Might be wrong. Probably not. bit of organ sound.
I'm sure
does me,
the last
does me
album definitely had a keyboard player on the list of the lineup, but there's nothing on this one.
Yeah, and I think there is in here. So
yeah,
and that dude's voice, like, how can you sing like that? Especially after the last time, I quite liked, but it pales in comparison to this one. I can't even pick out a standout song because they're just all so good. Actually, no, the last song, Flat Controller, epic reference to the Thomas the Tank Engine. So that is the best song for me. Just the balance of all of the clean parts, which build you up into the dirty parts, and it just hits you in the face like a massive train, and then takes you back down to clean again, and it all explores all these different like time signatures and amazing like chord use and build and structure of melody and stuff. It's just unbelievable. I've not really heard much like it. I mean, I've heard a lot of sludge doomy progressive bands before, but they've all got this sort of, like you said, the previous album is all like kind of meandering and a bit like, okay, bring it back together. But this is very, very well crafted. Really, really, really good. And I keep coming back to the production because it's just, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just, this is how bands should sound. Yeah. Just epic in every way. And I fucking loved it. And I'd give it a soapy hand job any day. And I hold the tip over.
Excellent.
A visual and a half that no one gets to see except us.
Yeah.
I've got my pants on, by the way.
Yeah.
Allegedly. He doesn't.
Ooh, okay. So the new Boss Keloid Family The Smiling Thrush ratings. What are we thinking for this new album? I know a lot of people really loved Melted on the Inch. But I honestly believe this is a far better album. You can hear the involvement in every aspect of Boss Keloid's sound on this. I think the song structures and riffs are far more interesting. The melodies sink their hooks in deeper, and the production is flawless. Ratings, I will go in at a 4.5 out of 5 on this one. Duncan, what are you thinking?
You done messed up, Ron. This is a 5 out of 5. This is top marks. This is as good as it gets this year. Once again, like, my 5s are being handed out to bands that I know for a fact I'm not going to hear another band that sounds like this year. I'm not going to hear another band do what Boss Keloid do as well as Boss Keloid have done on this release. and it will get spun to death. I will be sick of this album by the end of the year. I can tell you that now.
Will you though?
I can't wait to be sick of it. Like, because it means I will have listened to it 1,000,000 times, Kel. And I intend on hitting that fucking number. This is, like, there's literally not one detail I would change about this at all, or even feel that they missed a beat, or missed a step, or did something that was one step too far. I think this is as picture perfect this particular genre of music gets. It's a 5 for me.
Nice. And Kyle?
I'm going to echo one of you, but which one?
That's just a lot, Duncan.
Yeah. I'll let you two fight it over. The winner can... the winner can be told. I'll whisper it.
Done messed up, Aaron.
For me, it's a 5 out of 5.
Oh,
yes, Kyle.
nice.
First of the year for Kyle. Bringing it.
First of the year.
First of the year.
Absolutely cannot pick it apart at all. It's just amazing in every way.
Excellent.
Yep.
Nice one. This one drops on June 4th on Ripple Music. If you want to check out the band, it's facebook.com/Boss Keloid Band. I'll put a link in the description below to the band's Facebook and to their Bandcamp page. Check these guys out. If you've heard any of the tracks they've released so far, let us know what you think. Put some comments in below. Happy to hear your thoughts on that one. And that is the review. Thanks once again for checking out our reviews. Much appreciated. And we'll be back with another review very soon. But until then, take care. Speak to you soon.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.